Today on Rambling About Cars, an electric adventure with Ford, a Subaru split in half, updates to Cadillac's muscle sedan, a radio-controlled truck with a real engine and transmission, and this is important. We do have an important announcement to make about the show.
We do.
Friends, it's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith. I am back in the office with 60% of my voice. I've been a little sick, but I'm super excited to do this. Mr. Chris Bruce across the way. How you doing, man?
Doing okay. We got an announcement for the folks.
Listen up.
Next week will be the final Rambling About Cars on Motor One.
As it is.
As it is, yes. That does not mean that Smith and I are done podcasting. That does not. We've got a lot of new people at Motor One, and we're going to be retooling some stuff. And so we are going to give you guys one more show next week, and then that will be the end for Rambling About Cars on Motor One.
As it is on Motor One. We're thinking of this. We're thinking of this, and it'll be a positive thing overall. We're thinking of this as we're taking a bit of a hiatus. There will be some new things happening at Motor One that I'm excited to see. And Bruce and I, we're going to keep podcasting. We're going to put something new together. We're going to put something a little different together. And we want to make sure everybody is in the loop on this. So here's what I'm going to do. And Bruce, you can jump into with the same. Follow me personally, Smith. Follow me on Instagram and Threads. That's where I'm at. I'm at Hunter Veef. Let me spell that. Hunter, HUNTERVEEF. You follow me there, and we will keep you in the loop on all of things happening with Rambling About Cars, Bruce and Smith, the new podcast that'll be coming out. We want to keep everybody informed. We love all the ramblers. That's where you can find me, Instagram and Threads at Hunter Veef. Don't ask where that name came from.
Drop a link to both of those in private chat, and I will share them with the folks. And while you're doing that, I will tell folks where they can find me. So I am on here. I got links for you fine folks right now. So I am on Threads at AutoWriter227. Links going in there now. I am on Instagram, although I kind of only use Instagram for contacting people for work reasons. You know, we cover a lot of Instagram stuff, so Threads is probably the better choice. So there's Insta, and then I am on X. It's not X, it's Twitter. We all know this. And I am Chris Bruce 1985 there. So yeah,
and I'll go back and plug in some links into the YouTube description just to make sure everybody stays in the loop. Perfect. Again, the last show of Rambling About Cars, as it is on Motor One, we'll be wrapping up next week. It's not the end of Rambling About Cars. It's not the end of Bruce and Smith. Stay tuned for more awesomeness. But Bruce, it's not next week. It's now. It's now, man. And we've got some cool stuff to talk about.
Yes. You went and did something really cool last week because you were out with Victoria on the show, and you were in North Carolina. Is that right? Or South Carolina?
Well, I first of all, I listened to the show. And no, I wasn't in Area 51, which is technically Groom Lake. I was up in Utah at the Secret Air Force facility in Utah, doing just doing a little bit of PR work for our new alien ambassadors. That'll be announcing themselves later this year. And then from there, I flew to Charlotte, North Carolina for the big Ford performance. Basically, it was their party that they threw to kick off their 2024 racing season. The big deal on that, at least from my perspective, was the reveal of the Ford F-150 Lightning Switchgear, which we're looking at now here in photos. And if you're catching us on audio, still, we always love our audio listeners. Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer. Yeah, we're still going to stick with Deezer.
Still going to promote Deezer.
Let me describe what we're looking at here for you while I still have my voice. Because in addition to this awesome event that I went to, I also got nice and sick, so I'm recovering from that.
Talk a
If you
little.
can imagine,
Ask you some questions. Would that be better? Because I can tell you're already losing your voice a little bit.
I'm losing it a little bit. Well, let me just say, this is an F-150 Lightning that looks like an F-150 Raptor.
Mhm.
It's got 37-inch big beefy tires. It's got an upgraded suspension, but the powertrain is still your typical F-150 Lightning extended range, which, if memory serves me, I'm gonna have to pull up my article on this just to refresh my memory. That's the dual motor setup, obviously. The bigger battery, 131 kilowatt hour, 580 horsepower, 775 pound-feet of torque. They
But you're
unveiled this just as a
here, man.
one-off.
Yes. Let me take over a second so you can rest your voice and have a sip of that tea. So yeah, like you said, this is essentially what an F-150 Lightning Raptor would be. It's not, like you said, it's a one-off creation, but it's essentially got all the goodies you would expect on an electric Raptor. So internal bypass Fox 3.0 shocks. It's got a custom front suspension. It's got a custom double wishbone unit for the front suspension. Sorry, multi-link independent rear with a stabilizer bar. The track is 80 inches wide at the front and back, so this thing
It's
is
much
seriously
wider.
brawny. um,
It's
and
much wider.
they put on some carbon fiber body panels and some big old fender flares, and yeah.
It's
So
I mean, yeah, it's very wide. I do wanna stress, they didn't just take Raptor suspension components and bolt up underneath because this is a Lightning. It's completely different under there. So, in fact, they and I had the chance to talk with quite a few, Ford representatives on this. The Raptor obviously is a source of inspiration, but everything underneath this is bespoke to, Lightning switchgear, which I think is pretty cool that they put that much R&D into basically what is a one-off. There are no plans to put this into production, but I wouldn't be surprised if they steer something in this direction at some point because look how
so I
popular Raptor became, right?
wanted to ask you about that. You were at this event. Did anyone give you kind of a nudge and a wink about, yeah, it's a one-off, but that doesn't mean we're not gonna make one of it? Like, are they essentially testing the waters and seeing what people think of this thing? Uh,
Well, the answer to the first question was no. I didn't
okay.
get any sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It was impressed upon us. Hey, this is just a one off, similar to like the Mustang Mach-E 1400, vehicles like that, where it's a demonstrator. They want to push the boundaries of technology and performance in this avenue. Now, does that mean we won't see the fruits of their labor kind of distilled down in future products? I think that's a fairly safe bet, especially if this is received pretty well. Um, what's interesting to note here, though, maybe you're asking yourself, why is this called switch gear? That doesn't sound like necessarily a big off-road thing. Um, it's because this is designed to be an on-road performance vehicle too. And I
But
say that just as the photo of the switchgear jumping a hill comes up. That was an interesting aspect that I asked about because there are technically two variations of this truck. One, the one that we're seeing here, is the off-road version, obviously with the big wheels, the lifted suspension. The on-road version gets rid of the off-road stuff, like the skid plates underneath.
mhm,
It gets rid of the low clearance bumpers. It obviously gets rid of the off-road tires. It gets 20-inch performance tires. It has the same suspension components, but it has different springs that lower the ride height down. It's 7 inches in front, 5 in back. The powertrain stays the same. The point being, they want one vehicle using basically the same general suspension components to perform an on-road and an off-road performance function. That
right.
said, there isn't a second version. This is the only one. So at some point down the road, Ford told me they will do the conversion on this. They will change the springs. They will put on different front fascias. They will put on rocker panels to make it look more sporty for the road. And then they'll talk about it again at that point. Until then, Ford is taking this to a King of the Hammers, which I think is underway now. Or if it's not underway now, I think they might debut it tomorrow at Hammers. And I rode in this thing too, by the way. Von
Oh, I
Gittin
didn't know
Jr.
that.
He was doing media rides. I didn't get to drive it, unfortunately. It's got moves. It's got moves. I wouldn't have guessed sitting in the seat that this was basically the stock horsepower output for Lightning, and I wouldn't have guessed that at 7,000 pounds. One thing that you'll notice right away about an EV like this, with the battery and everything keeping the center of gravity really low, it's ridiculously stable. After our little loop that was really muddy, and we couldn't get too aggressive on that, the end of it comes up into just basically an open field. And just from personal experience, I would never go slinging across an open field in a pickup truck with any sort of ride height, crank the wheel to the right, hit the handbrake, drift it sideways. It's like, okay, this thing's going to roll. And it didn't. It just kind of drifted. And if that's what really got me, was how stable it felt. And I didn't really get
FBC has a question for you.
Yeah.
He wants to know if you got to ride in the super van, because that was at the same event, and so apparently some people did.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's even embarrassing in-car video of me that will never see the light of day. No, I didn't. No, I didn't throw up. But yeah, the super van was also on display there. We all the media there had a hot lap in it, with Ford CEO Jim Farley driving. So I mean, that was pretty cool.
Oh, really?
We all got a lap in the super van. It's fast.
Okay.
But I mean, it's come on. It looks like a van, but it's a race car. I mean,
yes. I should pull.
It's got the tube chassis. I mean, it's designed to be a race car. It just has a van body on the outside. But yeah, we went for just a ride in that. I mean, the whole thing was basically the kickoff to the big Ford Performance Party that took place in Charlotte later that evening. I think Ford had 50 of their racing drivers from various series from around the world there at one location. Of course, they announced the switchgear. Ford also announced they're going to be taking something new to Pikes Peak later this year. That's something that we're just going to have to wait to find out a little bit more on. But yeah, I mean, my ride in the super van, I mean, it's fast. It's an electric race car. Anybody that's been in an EV, the instant torque, there is no beating it. It just punches you in the gut right off the bat. It brakes hard, it turns hard, it accelerates hard. It's a race car.
Okay.
That's about all I got to say. I got to take a little drink of my special herbal tea here right now.
Okie doke. I can tell you're losing your voice, so maybe we should move on. But I think we covered everything about the switchgear. I'm curious to see what the road version is going to look like, because while it's the same truck technically, it seems like they kind of are doing a lot between the suspension changes. It's going to have a completely different front end. You know, it's going to have the 20-inch tires or 20-inch wheels on it. Like, it sounds like it's going to be an interesting thing, and this is already cool. So I just wonder, what they're going to do with that.
Well,
we haven't had a proper like street performance truck in a little while. Like back in the day of the F-150, the original F-150 Lightning. So yeah, curious to see what happens there.
Ford sent us a spec sheet for switchgear, and on that spec sheet was an image of, and I'm guessing it's a rendering of the street version. Because I asked several Ford reps at the event, hey, do you have any photos of the street version? And I said, I mean, you've got something here on your spec sheet, and they were like, wait, what? we have something on the spec sheet? It's like, okay, more to come on that. So I mean, it looks like the switchgear. It's got the same livery, but instead of just the really narrow off-road bumpers, it's got just a big, like a street style front fascia. It sits low to the ground. It doesn't have some of the off-road stuff on it. I mean, it's what you would expect a street truck to look like, right?
Cool. Very good. Well, I'm going to let you rest your voice a bit because you need to. So we will move on to a story that I wrote up for Motor One, and it's a wild one. So obviously, if you anyone who lived in the or lives in the Northeast last week, ton of snow, just you know, lots of snowfall, bad weather, ice in some places, and the New York Department of Transportation posted a terrifying video of why you need to drive carefully in the snow, even if you have all-wheel drive like this Subaru WRX owner.
This is freaking crazy that
So
there were no injuries, right,
there were
Bruce?
no injuries, and you'll be shocked that there were no injuries
Because
once
there was
you see
nobody
some
in the back
photographs.
seat.
Right. So, spoiler alert, the snowplow ended up cutting the WRX in half. But here, let's
What?
watch the video real quick here first, and you'll see. So basically, as the video starts here, and it's very brief, you can just see that the WRX is trying to pass a semi truck,
Well,
and you can also
let's
see,
set this up a little bit though, because he's trying to pass a semi truck on a hill with a small curve. So obviously, this is a no passing zone
and a ton of snow.
with a ton of snow. So I mean, the dumbassery here is like next level.
So what we're playing it now. There's no audio because it's a dash cam video from a snowplow.
Eesh, God.
I mean, it's a hard hit for sure, and you'll see it
Oh!
more in just a second.
It's a hard hit. I mean, do you see the plow? Do you see how much the plow moves when it hits the? I mean, it's on springs. It's supposed to move some, but I mean, that plow is pointed to the right, throwing snow off the road,
Mhm.
and it hits that Subaru, and it flips the plow all the way back to the left. You see bits of I can see the taillight shattering. I can see
Yeah,
body panel shattering. The
and
plow
since
obviously
this
comes
is
to a stop pretty quickly.
since this is a dash cam video, you can see at the top the snowplow was going 32 miles an hour when this happened. So
Yep.
not you know not a spectacularly high rate of speed, but enough. You know what a snowplow weighs. They're not. They're giant vehicles, so still force equals mass times acceleration.
How would you like to be the guy in the semi truck that he was passing though?
Oh
That
yeah,
would be sheer panic. I mean, what are you gonna do?
yeah.
The road is already snow covered. I can promise you he was on the brakes probably
Yeah.
before the Subaru was, you know?
So now that we've seen the video, let's look at the aftermath because that is where things get really shocking. Um, so this was also posted on Twitter here, and I'm gonna do the most shocking image first. Here is
Oh,
what's left of the WRX. As you can see, it is
so it's not really
literally
a
in half.
it's not really a WRX, is it? It's a WR.
Yeah,
Because like the just about everything from the B pillar back, it's gone.
right.
It's this
The roof,
it's
you can see the roof is a little bit intact because you can see where the side curtain airbag is there. But
Yep.
otherwise, you were just looking through the car.
Yep, the
It
car
got
is
cut in
split
half.
in half, and that's not
Um,
an exaggeration. It is split in half.
and then here we can see some of the other. This is the back end of the car as they're loading it onto the flatbed, and this I mean, there's the back of it, I guess. It's just a crumpled ball of metal. Like you can discern
Yeah,
a wheel and otherwise, yeah.
that's
So
oof.
absolutely shocking that no one was hurt. How this person was completely uninjured is just, I mean, you got to call it. It's just dumb luck.
It
Because,
it it is dumb luck. And I mean, let's just say it. If there had been somebody in the back seat, they would have been dead.
yes, I
Dead.
don't know that you can debate that.
This person would have killed whoever was in the back seat. I'm extraordinarily thankful that nobody was injured. And I know I'm turning into an old man as I say this, but use this as an example for good, people. Yeah, all-wheel drive makes you feel like a god on the road. Trust me, If you have all-wheel drive with really good snow tires, you get really arrogant on the road, and I am constantly keeping myself in check to try to not become this guy. And seeing videos like this, frankly, helps to ground me a little bit because I wouldn't be passing uphill on a curve in dry conditions, never mind snow. Um, but seeing things like this, it can ground you a little bit. So
Right.
if we
And
can get some good out of it, put this into perspective. This driver was thinking, "Hey, I've got this pass, no problem." No, no. There's
and
a time and a place to enjoy a car. That's not it. That's definitely not it.
and I wrote the story and I tried to address that in the story is that all-wheel drive is fantastic. Gives you extra traction in slippery conditions. It is fantastic. But it's, it's not, it can't help you brake. Like, it doesn't matter which wheels are getting the power when it comes to braking. It's brakes. So that is what it is. And yeah, like you said, just, all-wheel
Well,
drive doesn't make you invincible. Stuff
here's
like
an
this can happen.
example. Here's an example that I've used over the years that some people have, um, a few people have said, "Hey, that's pretty insightful." Others have said, "You're ridiculous." I'll put this out here to all the ramblers. Let me know what you think. Email podcast@motor1.com. Guess what, folks? Podcast@motor1.com email isn't going anywhere. You can keep emailing us.
You can
So
send us
so
email, sure.
so keep emailing us, podcast@motor1.com. I have a good set of snow tires on my 95 Ford Mustang
Mhm.
that I would drive in South Dakota. I don't drive it that much here in Michigan because I want to keep it out of the salt. It's there for emergencies, which I actually
Okay.
did pull it out on Monday because I had to go to the doctor's office and I needed the extra vehicle. Um, which by the way, I didn't clear the shop before when I was clearing the driveway. So I had to back that Mustang through a foot of snow and then a 2-foot bank to get it onto the driveway. And god damn it, I did it because I've got extra weight and good snow tires on it. But that car, rear wheel drive, sports car, if you will. Um, I argue I'm better in the snow than an all-wheel drive vehicle on all seasons. Here's why. Yes, all-wheel drive will get you going. Okay. Acceleration. That's one part of driving. Stopping is another important part of driving. Turning is another important part of driving. So there's three factors, right? Going, stopping, turning. All-wheel drive will help you go, but I'm better at stopping and turning because I have the better tires. I am 66% better in the snow in my Mustang than an all-wheel drive vehicle on all-season tires. Now, obviously, traction is going to vary between all-season tires. There are some all-season tires out there right now that are actually really, really good in the snow. Michelin actually makes their set of I think it's the Michelin Cross Climates that are almost as good as a snow tire. They are phenomenal all-season tires. And I mean, different brands will vary, but acceleration is only 1/3 of the driving experience.
Mhm.
2/3 is stopping and turning, and I would argue those are the most important ones of all, because those are the ones that you're probably gonna need to avoid an emergency situation, right? So,
Sure.
that's been my point. People have said, "Ah, you're freaking ridiculous, Smith." I said, "Okay."
Also,
And I
one
just leave
other
it at
thing
that.
to add is that, and this is, if uh, the tire reviews channel has shown this multiple times, snow tires help you stop better in the snow, like
Yeah,
versus an all season. I
yeah,
mean, it's still not magic, but just because of the way they work, you can slow down better with
yeah,
snow tires in the snow than with all seasons.
yeah.
It's still not a magic thing, but yeah. So
Am I crazy? Am I crazy to say that my Mustang with snow tires would be better?
no, I mean, think about it. Think about the years and years and years of people driving. Many of those vehicles were rear wheel drive in the 60s, and people made it work. Like,
With some weight on the back end, especially, I mean, that makes such a huge difference. I'll be completely honest with everybody. I went to the doctor on Monday. I had an appointment Monday afternoon. I realized, okay, wife's working. Not, I'm gonna have to, dig the Mustang out. And then I thought, well, you know what? I don't have that long of a run from the shop up to the driveway. I've got a little gap to shoot through. There's a bush on the right side. The garage is on the left. I had it partially cleared, so I had a little bit of a run up. Let's just give it a shot, man. There was about a foot of snow laying in there that had packed down. I've got 200 pounds of extra weight in the trunk. So I backed out. I mean, I didn't just put it in gear and just drive and go. I didn't know. I didn't do that. But I backed out, got into the deep stuff. Okay, started to feel the back end wiggle a little bit. Stopped. Went forward. Kind of made a little bit of, just did that about 3 or 4 times. Made myself a good pack. Then I was like, okay, there's a 2-foot bank where I've cleared the driveway. I've got to bust that shit up. So I got up a pretty good run. Nailed into it. The car slid over into the bush a little bit. It's like, ooh, I scratched up the car. Well, I'll have to buff it out. Went forward, did it again, busted through again. Went forward, did it again a third time. Okay, now I'm up here on the driveway. Went out and looked. No scratches on the car. Snow was packed into both tailpipes. Just revved up to about $5,000. Poof, pumped it out. I cannot kill this car. And then I had to save my parents later in the day because their newer truck died at the gas station. I had to go jumpstart them. I was 20 miles away. So
it was a kind of a rough day for you, but yeah.
Monday, I was supposed to go to the doctor and rest, and I ended up driving about 100 miles, and then replace the battery in their pickup truck. But hey, I drive to the moon and back to help them out.
Cool.
Very good. That was my little Monday story, and I can't kill the Mustang.
Well, speaking of, how can I make this transition? Speaking of V8 powered vehicles, see, I got it. Speaking of V8 powered vehicles, Cadillac updated the CT5 Blackwing the CT5V and the CT5V Blackwing. This just came. Was this just this morning or was it late yesterday? I gotta look now. This was just this morning.
Yep, just debuted this morning.
And it kind of got me thinking. So let's get the specs out of the way first. No powertrain changes for either vehicle. So you still get a turbocharged V6 with the CT5V. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button, so I need to pull my photos up here. Still get turbocharged V6 for the CT5V, and then the Blackwing still gets the supercharged 6.2 liter V8 that makes 668 horsepower. And you can get that with either a manual or a 10-speed automatic, 6-speed manual, 10-speed automatic.
Can we take just a moment and consider the irony of the situation? It's 2024. Cadillac is the manufacturer that's still giving us the bonkers crazy V8 manual sports sedan. Cadillac.
So it's funny that you say that, because as I was preparing this, and the conversation I wanted to have with you is this, well, I guess it wouldn't be the last, but this is among the last American muscle cars. I think I could make that argument, because it is an intermediate car with a giant engine in it, rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
I think it might be kind of one of the last bastions of what a muscle car is, especially now that the Charger's gone.
Yeah. And I mean, no Charger Hellcat with that big V8. This is, I mean, I'm trying to think.
I mean, you got the Mustang, which is also a performance car, but the thing with the Charger and with this is that they're both 4 doors. So theoretically you could, use it as a family car, but that it's the last one now, unless I'm forgetting one, but
with a stick, no less. 20 years ago, if somebody had said, which automaker is going to be like the last holdout of the old school big V8 up front, manual transmission, rear wheel drive in the back, Cadillac would not have been in the top 10 for me. It wouldn't have been in the top 100 for me. And here we are. I mean, I mean, what a world, right?
Yeah, it's bizarre in its own certain way. So let's go
So
through
we've
what
talked
else.
about what hasn't changed. We should probably talk about what has, right?
Exactly. So yeah, very, very slight front fascia changes. Like really quite slight.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
you're gonna have
it's
to
like
go.
they connected the vertically oriented running lights, which I mean, I don't know if I really like the change as much. Those corner vents are a little bigger, and that whole assembly is incorporated into the lights. I think I kind of like the outgoing version a little bit better. This, I mean, it still isn't bad. That's sort of my take on that.
I agree with you, but I also think that the changes are so minor that it's not going to annoy most people that
But
much.
inside, though,
Right. Well, I since I believe it was Group FBC or it might have been Ted Adam Green mentioned this earlier. There are 3 new colors. There's a green color that you'll see in the photos here called Typhoon Metallic. There's also a new shade of gray called Rift Metallic, and there's a shade of black called Deep Space Metallic. So now let's move into where the big changes are, and that is on
yeah.
the interior. And this thing now has the 33-inch combination infotainment screen instrument panel that you find in Cadillacs like the Lyric and the Escalade. Just a giant sideways screen. We're in the screen wars right now. Like we all just talk about like the
Well,
muscle wars, the muscle car. Like screens are getting bigger and bigger and bigger in cars. Here, I'm going to pause it right here so people can get a
I
better
mean,
look.
I yes, we have been in a screen war for a long time. I think we are leveling out on that because there gets to a certain point. I mean, for example, Cadillac could have, and we say 33-inch. It's diagonal. It's not like a big 33-inch television. Going corner to corner. It's the screen that incorporates the digital driver display, and then it moves over into the center infotainment, which
Right.
I think is a pretty good look. Cadillac could have easily just dropped a big old portrait style screen right down to the console, and they didn't do it. I mean, we've seen other automakers have big screens up top, big screens down low. I think it looks really good. I think Cadillac has one of the better looking digital interiors right now. If you'll call it that, with the larger screen incorporating 2 displays into one.
And
I think it looks pretty tasteful.
one thing that we should also be noted, they're still keeping some
Yep.
buttons. It is
Yep.
not just, all pads that you have to touch.
Mhm.
As you can see here, there are still buttons. Thank God. You and I have had this conversation umpteen times, but digital screens are nice. They are useful. They're attractive, but in terms of function, in terms of usability, in terms of like doing the thing that it's supposed to do and doing it well, I love a button.
And I mean, it's simple, it's effective. I think automakers are hearing pushback now from customers and understanding that, you know what? If all I want to do is turn on my heated seat, I don't want to have to be like, oh, we'll tap this settings. We'll tap it. And beyond that, even if it is just one touch on a screen, you still don't have a simple no look tactile uh, function for that. You have to
Right.
look over at the screen to see exactly where you're tapping because the screen just feels like the screen. Um,
Exactly.
you can run your fingers over a set of buttons without looking, and after a little while, you'll know which button is which, and you can
Hmm.
keep your eyes on the road. I think it reduces driver distraction, and yeah, I'm with commenter Chad Ruth. Is this your first time commenting? If so, thank you very much for joining. I cannot wait for buttons and knobs to come back. Um, do you think we'll ever see like the peak of the late '80s where there were like 100 buttons? Like, do you remember like some of like the Pontiac Grand Prix
I
and the
was just about to
Bonnevilles
make yes.
that
Where
had
there
like
the
20
steering wheel was
buttons in
nothing
the
but
steering
buttons.
wheel? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if I
Um,
want to go that far with it.
no, there are, you know, as with everything, there are limits that you need to stay with. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up an image of the button steering wheel just in case someone, one of our listeners, is unfamiliar with it.
I was very close to pulling the trigger on, I think it was a 1989 Turbo Grand Prix. This was probably 15 years ago when I was still doing a lot of just kind of cheap car shopping, buying, flipping 6 months later, and I found one. It had some sketchiness about it. Yes, we're looking at it now. Look at that. It's got like the big wing buttons on the instrument cluster there, or not the cluster, but the bezel over the instrument cluster. It's got just a bunch of buttons right on the steering wheel. It's got more buttons over on the radio. I bet there's buttons behind that automatic shifter. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah.
I don't like the buttons on the steering wheel like that.
No, I agree, but it still shows how far things have how much things have changed.
Yep.
But yeah, the one other thing I wanted to add is that you can now get Super Cruise on your CT5V or CT5V Blackwing. So that's, for anyone who's unfamiliar, that's GM's hand-free driving system. It works maybe not exclusively, but largely on highways. It's only certain mapped roads that the system works, but they've been adding more and more mapped roads for the last several years. So unless you're like in some incredibly rural area, it's probably a functional system for you.
There's also a new carbon fiber package you can get on the outside that just jazzes up the Blackwing a little bit. And it's worth pointing out, we've been talking Blackwing, but the design changes and the interior changes are available on the CT5V as well. It's not
Correct.
The little brother, if you will. It's got Google built in, updated performance data recorder, which, well, I shouldn't say that. There are CT5V Blackwing owners that are probably going to the track and using that. It seems like such an odd feature to have on a Cadillac. My mind still just clicks into like DeVille and El Dorado as just the classic Cadillacs. And I still hope those names come back. Those would be perfect names to bring back for future EVs. Cadillac, if you're listening, and I know you'll listen, Cadillac, get rid of the Q stuff. You've got El Dorado, you've got Lyric, LYRIQ, Celestic, the Optic.
Okay.
You've got brand equity in El Dorado. You've got brand equity in DeVille. Tap into that, man.
No, totally. So let's move on to our last topic for tonight. And so we're going to have a little bit of fun here. This is so we have gotten in trouble with showing YouTube videos in the past. I have learned my lesson. I've been doing this show long enough. So I'm just going to show a snippet of it, and then we can talk about things from there. But this is a channel that we really love, the Johnny Q90 YouTube channel. This guy, some of them are kits that he's building and putting together, but then he kind of does custom things with it. So in this case, he has a 4x4 Bronco RC car. At the beginning of this video, it's got a V-twin engine in it, a tiny V-twin engine. And so he takes that out because it doesn't quite fit, and he puts a 17.5 cc 4-cylinder engine in it that totally runs. It's totally a real engine. It's just...
It's one of the tiny scale engines that we've covered a lot at Motor One. And it has a regular transmission that goes along with it.
And a 3-speed transmission.
Slips it into the little radio controlled Bronco, and then goes and does Bronco things with it. And just like that, I'm 10 years old again, right? So how can you not be? Look, there's no hood on it. It's the Bronco with a little 4-cylinder. It sounds like it's a little 4-cylinder, and let's see this in action with muted sound, just for a little bit, like the 7-second rule.
Exactly.
Right.
So, but yeah, we'll see it move here. Like, it actually is totally functional as an off-road vehicle.
It climbs through grass. Look.
Here, there's one snippet here I want to show where he kind of shows off the suspension articulation. It's right.
Look,
It'll be right here.
it's off-roading. It climbs over a curb. I mean, I sound like I'm kidding a little bit, but I mean, this is just a little small scale thing. That's a pretty sizable curb.
Yeah.
I mean, do we know? I mean, it's got really good suspension articulation. Do we know is the Bronco a specific kit? Like, is this one of the Traxxas
We do
off-roaders?
not
Because
know that.
I know they make some really good stuff.
I do not know where the frame from the
Okay,
for the Bronco comes from.
but
But
you'll
in
want to
this
go.
video, he shows off. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Go to motor1.com, check it out. The story title is Miniature 4x4 with 0.0157 liter four-cylinder
Yeah,
engine is the ultimate RC off-roader. We'll check it out here with the body off. But,
because I mean, then you could have a chance to listen to it, hear what it sounds. I mean, it's these cool little engines. I'm gonna get one of these days. Because I
yeah.
only have like 250 various scale model things here in my model museum right now.
But yeah, there you can see how showing it off in front of the Bronco there. But yeah, what I wanted to mention was while the engine itself is a kit and he puts together the kit and it's really cool, and we actually covered when he did that. You, Smith, you actually wrote that video up. He does all sorts of custom work in order to make it fit inside of this
Mhm.
chassis. So he basically machines motor mounts for it, machines all sorts of bracketry for, because since it's a fully functional four-cylinder engine, you need a radiator, you need, a little fuel tank, you need, he has to make some custom routing for the exhaust because obviously the exhaust has to go someplace specific. So all of that work is just purely custom. And the fact that he gets it all to work together and look so cool it's just so fun to watch because like you said, it makes you feel kind of like a kid and you just like want one and you want to, you want to build it and then play with it.
There's a dangerous side effect here, though.
What's
You
that?
see this and you think, well, that doesn't look very hard. I can go out to the garage and I mean, the engine in my car is just like that, but a little bigger, right? I mean, no, it's the fundamentals are the same.
The
Yes.
fundamentals are totally the same.
You can get into a lot of trouble if you just think, I'll just go out and I'll just do something different with my water pump here to make it flow a little bit better. Don't try that. Don't try
No,
that, people.
don't do that.
You
That's what these
can do
small
that
engines
if
are.
you get one of these little engines.
Right.
But don't try to do it on the real thing.
Right. Because if you break this, yeah, you're out. So we should say that the engine kit itself is, let me double check the prices here. The
Isn't it like
engine
a
kit itself, it's $1,000. The transmission is another 450. And then the skill that it takes to combine them together and then fit it into this chassis and then everything is kind of
priceless?
exactly.
Priceless.
Exactly.
And honestly, I want to say we aren't sponsored, we aren't
No,
affiliated with them at all. I
absolutely not.
don't think $1,000 is really that bad of a price for a small functioning four-cylinder. I even hesitate to say model because it is a real engine.
Right.
It
It's not a
runs on
mod.
fuel, it uses coolant, it needs the coolant to keep from overheating. It's a real engine, but it's just a very small scale one.
Yeah.
I don't think that's out of line for a price, considering the design, the engineering that goes
Right.
into it, the small components. I mean, it's not easy to machine very, very tiny things. So
Right.
I
That's
think
a
it's
good
well
point.
worth it.
That's a fair thing to point out because I know we're harping on it and we keep saying it is a real engine. There, it has little pistons, it has little connecting rods, it has little tiny valves. It's a real engine, but just tiny.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, think about the frustration you feel when you're trying to get at like a 6 millimeter bolt. Well,
right.
how about something like 0.6 millimeters? Or I don't know what the size of the fasteners are on this engine, but yeah, super
But yeah.
small, super adorable, and again, go to motor1.com, check out the article. The thing sounds phenomenal.
Mhm.
I haven't heard one of these small scale engines yet that doesn't sound bad. We did a rotary a long time ago. Do you remember the rotary?
Yeah,
that
it sounds
one
like
was
a dentist drill.
that one was a little off-putting until the revs go up, and then it's like, okay, now this is cool. Which is kind of the same as a real rotary, right?
Which is kind of the same as a real, yeah, totally. But yeah, I think that's going to be our show tonight. I know we're a little bit shorter than usual, but that's okay. Smith, I think we're going to have to do something really special next week. I don't know what that's going to be. We're going to have to talk it through, but
we're gonna have a big party. I'm gonna have a voice.
I hope so.
I'm gonna have a voice. We're gonna have a big party. And again, Motor One wrapping up here with Rambling About Cars. Not the end of Rambling About Cars. Bruce and I are going to be
not
doing
the end of you and I podcasting.
Just give us, we're due for a little hiatus anyways. Bruce, let me say something here about Mr. Chris Bruce. We're on episode number 160.
Yep.
We've done Rambling About Cars every day for 160 days. Sorry, every week. Sorry. Yeah. Every week for 160 weeks. You, sir, have not missed one. Nope. I have missed a few. You have not missed one in 160 weeks. I don't know if there's anybody else on YouTube that can make that claim. You are a machine.
I appreciate the praise. But yeah, so next week we're gonna do something fun. I don't know what it's gonna be yet. You and I got to talk about it, but
we're gonna put it all together. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna take a hiatus, and then we're gonna come back and do some other cool stuff.
Absolutely. So with that, everyone, that's our show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We appreciate all of you and the fact that you come and listen to us, and we will see you next week.
We'll see everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.